Good morning. My name is Amy Abel, and I will be your worship partner today. And I want to welcome you to Westminster. Please note that the service is being recorded. In a few moments, we will be lighting a chalice together. So I invite you to get a chalice or candle if you have one nearby. If you are new and would like to sign up for our weekly newsletter, please fill out the form being posted in the chat. If you would like to see the order of service for today, that link is also being posted in the chat. This morning we have two announcements. First, at 11:15, please join myself, Reverend Ellen, with the Welcome Connect team for any newcomers, and we'll be there to answer your questions. Our second announcement, the Multi-Gen Planning Team has an extra fun activity planned for our special Easter service, and we need your help to make it extra special. We are asking the young and the young at heart to lend us a stuffed animal to participate in the Westminster Stuffed Animal Egg Hunt. If you have a beloved, lovely, or special stuffy, you can entrust our team. Please drop him or her off at Westminster between March 22nd and March 28th. Be sure to take a picture of yourself with your beloved and also clearly label your stuffy friend so that you can be reunited with them on Easter Sunday. Stuffed animals can be dropped off at the Magical Bunny Portal, aka the drop box at Westminster, and that's located at the rear door. Our chalice lighting marks the beginning of our worship service. I will light mine and share our reading, and then I invite you to light yours if you have one. And if you like, you can use the chat to post the name of the street where the chalice was lit. The words by Jennifer Grayson. We are drawn together by a belief that how we are in the world, who we are together matters. We light this chalice together in the knowledge that love, not fear, can change the world.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ellen Quaadgras. I am the minister here at Westminster, and it is so good to see you all. I missed you last week, and I'm glad to be back. In this Christian Lenten season, and in the spirit of this month's theme of commitment, we will reflect today on those brief moments in time, those high moments that ask of us commitment and hold within them potential. Moments that, if we nourish them, may just be seeds for an expansive, rich, and purposeful life. What are those moments for each of us, and how might we expand upon them? I invite us deeper into today's service with these words by the Reverend Gretchen Haley. It starts here, in this moment, in this breath. You feel the rising in your chest, the healing, the hunger, the hope, the courage, the calling, the commitment, the drawing out of each new day. It begins now. In this story, we weave together the songs we sing, the prayers we bring into being with our hearts to our lips, from our hands to our lives. Our shared life starts here with praise and thanksgiving, with forgiveness, and this humble, centering confession that in any moment we could be wrong. Let us make a promise to keep learning, keep trying, keep our sense of humor, and to keep close, knowing that we are all in this together. Let us begin. Let us worship together. Let us join together for our unison affirmation, which is being posted in the chat, and you will be invited to unmute so that we can say it together. Love
is the spirit of this church, and service our mission. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Let us gather our hearts and minds in a spirit of prayer or meditation. Spirit of life and love, may we find in any moment a wider vision of the world, including a broader view of justice and dreams of peace that are not defined by boundaries of geography or race or religion, or by the limits of any worldly structures or systems. May our spirits open so that wherever we go, we may experience feeling called personally, called by our own name to serve, to share, to praise, called to never give up on the promise of a world transformed where all can enjoy life in all its fullness. Amen. I invite you to either join in singing our song in response, or simply, as always, you may take it in if you like. Spirit of life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. has shone. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Now is the time in our service for the offering. Here at Westminster, we share our offering each month with a different organization that shares our values or mission. Our March Share the Place plate is Youth Pride RI, dedicated to meeting the unique needs of youth and young adults who identify within the LGBTQAI community, while working to end homophobic and transphobic environments in which they live, work, and play. Youth Pride RI provides a safe space for youth to connect with others and express their sexual and gender identities, as well as to discuss issues such as immigration, substance abuse, domestic violence, HIV testing, and other health resources and legal advice. In addition, they provide a variety of needed services, such as assistance with applications for subsidized housing, obtaining a GED, transportation to appointments, explaining government benefits, connecting members to mental health resources, and providing information on food pantries and hot meal sites. The other half of the offering goes to support the good work of this community. You can donate using the link that is now being posted in the chat. The offering will now be given and will be received with deep gratitude.
Our first reading this morning is a Lenten passage from the Christian Bible. It's from Mark chapter 1, verses 9 through 13. And it came to pass in those days that Jesus came from Nazareth of Galilee and was baptized of John in Jordan. And straightway, coming up out of the water, he saw the heavens opened, and the Spirit, like a dove, descended upon him. And there came a voice from heaven, saying, Thou art my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. And immediately the Spirit drove him into the wilderness. And he was there in the wilderness 40 days, tempted by Satan, and was with the wild beasts, and the angels ministered unto him.
Our second reading is by the Reverend Dr. Howard Thurman, an African contemporary of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve. Despite the dullness and barrenness of the days that pass, if I search with due diligence, I can always find a deposit left by some former radiance, but I had forgotten. At the time, it was full-orbed, glorious, and resplendent. I was sure it would never forgot, that I would never forgot. In the moment of its fullness, I was sure it would illuminate my path for the rest of my journey. I had forgotten how easy it was to forget. There was no intent to betray what seemed so sure at the time. My immediate response was whole, clean, authentic. But little by little, there crept into my life the dust, the grit of the journey, details, low-level demands, all kinds cross currents, nothing momentous, nothing overwhelming, nothing flagrant, just wear and tear. If there had been some direct challenge, a clear-cut issue, I would have fought it to the end and beyond. In the quietness of this place, surrounded by the all-pervading presence of God, my heart whispers, keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve, that in fair weather or in foul, in good times or in tempests, in the days where the darkness and foe are nameless or familiar, I may not forget that to which my life is committed. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve.
Do you hear, my friend, in the place where you stand? Through the sky, through the land. Do you hear? In the heights on the plain, in the vale of May, in the sun, in the rain. Do you hear?
Through the roar, through the rush, do you hear in the hush of your soul? Hear the earth, hear what's still, hear the birds come to hear a sigh soul, in your soul. From the place where you stand to the uttermost strand. Do you hear, oh my friend? Do you hear, do you hear?
All the dreams, all the days, all the sighs, all the prayers, they are yours, mine and theirs. Do you hear?
Do you hear? Do you hear?
Moments of high resolve grab you by the lapel. They make you sit up and pay attention. They remind you that you are alive, and they remind you why you are alive. Moments like when I told my dad I couldn't picture myself having kids, but that I was deeply committed to being an auntie to my nieces. I remember seeing the tears in his eyes, which I assumed were pride. It wasn't till later that I wondered if they were also grief. Regardless, it is a moment that has stuck with me. And as I remember, as my nieces and then my nephew grew, and they started understanding things about the real world, I realized I wanted to live my life in a way that would be worthy of those beautiful spirits in those small bodies. I remember very clearly a couple of moments at work one day, while taking a walk another time, playing with them one afternoon, moments where that commitment crystallized and began to grow in me. And then I remember a time a really close friend of mine was struggling with her mental health. She'd been struggling for a while, and I'd been trying to help her for a while. One day, she checked herself into a hospital. It happened to be the day before I had finals and a paper due and a sermon to preach in my internship congregation. I remember feeling flat out. And I remember thinking, does she really need me now? I talked with a spiritual mentor of mine who knew I could get a little over-attached to my work sometimes, and she said to me, Ellen, what would Jesus do? And that struck me because as a Jewish atheist, she would never, ever have wondered what Jesus would do. But while on the one hand I had to laugh, I also had to listen. And while I have no recollection of that sermon or that paper or those exams, I remember clear as a bell taking the time, visiting my friend, and walking the grounds of that place arm in arm with her, who, by the way, I didn't typically walk arm in arm with, but something about the openness of that moment, the depth of it, I could tell it made a difference to her that I was there that day. And it made a difference to me. What would Jesus do? What would I do if I knew more consistently that it really mattered? If I knew I mattered? Keep before me the moments of my high resolve. You've had moments like this. when your children or grandchildren or nieces or nephews were born, or when you knew what you needed to do with a friend or family member who was in need, or when you saw something in the world and you knew it was up to you to get involved, to take action, to give it your best. And perhaps you too forget sometimes your own significance. Maybe you too get confused about priorities. Maybe you too find that the dust and grit of your journey has crept into your life, that cross currents, and there are so many of them, have led you to forget. But maybe you too hear your heart whisper about your high calling, asking you to keep fresh those moments of your high resolve. We happen to be right now in the middle of the Christian season of Lent, a time that echoes a moment of high resolve for that Jewish figure Jesus, whose modeling we sometimes might and sometimes might not follow. Here's the story of that moment paraphrased. Before the beginning of his ministry, Jesus went to John the Baptist to be baptized. Now, we don't know much about what led to this moment. We don't know much about Jesus' childhood, his adolescence, or his early adulthood. We don't know just what prompted him to search out this wilderness preacher to request a spiritual soul cleansing. We only know that he did. And we know that it is written that when Jesus emerged from that water, the Spirit descended upon him and he heard the words, he was beloved, that he was a child of God, and that God was pleased with him. That's a moment that will get you to sit up and pay attention. Imagine if you saw that and heard that and felt it. If you suddenly knew deep inside just how loved you might be. If you suddenly realized with your whole self that you are significant, a child of God. Imagine if you suddenly understood with every cell in your body that you are good. So good that the most powerful force in the universe is pleased with you. Pleased with you. What would you do then? Well, here's what Jesus did. He went into the desert. Apparently, that same Spirit that raised him up to these glorious, resplendent heights then drove him immediately into the least glamorous circumstances you can find. The desert with scorching heat in the day, bitter cold at night, no food, little water, just about the dustiest, grittiest place there is. And he was there, as the Bible says, for 40 days and 40 nights. That's about 6 weeks. That's a long time. By the end, he was hungry and, I imagine, weak, tired, which is exactly when he gets a visit from the devil, Satan, the tempter, the rationalizer, the leader away from high aspirations. And while as you use, we may not believe in a being with horns and a tail, I suspect that you too may have some experience with this kind of voice in your head or in your life. I know I do. Here's what he says to Jesus. If you are the Son of God, turn these stones to bread. Now remember, Jesus is weak and tired and hungry. This guy knows what he's doing, going for the gut, literally. Wouldn't you like some bread? I bet you would. Wouldn't you? So that's the bait. Now, here's the hook. In that same breath, the devil attacks Jesus's newfound depth of clarity about who he is. You're a child of God? Think you're special? If you're all that, do this. Do this impossible thing. If you're the Son of God, turn these stones to bread. You can do that, right? You're important. If you can't or won't, what does that say about you? It's a no-win challenge, but Jesus sidesteps it completely. You may recognize his response, man shall not live by bread alone, but on the word that comes from the mouth of God. Or to paraphrase, dude, it's not about the bread. It's about communion with something deeper, more sustaining. It's about soul food. Which, good response. Okay, Jesus 1, devil 0, but here's temptation number 2. The devil shows Jesus a very high point and says to him, if you are the Son of God, throw yourself down. For it's written, he will command his angels concerning you. They'll lift you up in their hands, so you will not even strike a foot against a stone. Or in other words, take this leap. Your God will save you, won't he? It is, again, a trap. Doubling down on this whole who do you think you are thing, he asks Jesus to do another impossible task, to prove something. But again, it's insidious because there are only 2 options. Either you do it and risk your life for no reason, or you don't do it. And then, again, what does that say about you? Are you all that? Then why don't you trust? Are you brave? Can you do important, brave things? Any important, brave thing? The devil is asking the kind of question that can kick off a whole chain of corrosive self-doubt that leads to timidity, smallness, nowhere good. Jesus nimbly sidesteps this one as well, reminding the devil that God said, basically, trust, don't test. Listen to your inner guide. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. Nevertheless, the devil already has a 3rd volley up his sleeve after this 1-2 punch attacking Jesus' sense of self, after these corrosive questions designed to make him doubt himself. The devil conveniently has a proposition. In case you're feeling a little insecure, he basically says for this 3rd temptation, do I have a deal for you? He shows Jesus the world in all its splendor, in all its glory. He suggests Jesus could have or be or do anything he might want, every hunger satisfied, every ambition fulfilled, every dream come true. The only thing you have to do, the devil adds, is do it my way. You know, a little white lie here or there, bit of manipulation from time to time, some ignoring others' needs, a little short-sightedness, a few helpings of callousness, and some intentional distortions. But if you live life my way, I will build you up with all of this. To which Jesus responds with his final no, thank you. What I have is better. And you and I, dear devil, are done. Well, I don't think it's a coincidence that this corrosive voice pops up when Jesus was at his most exhausted and weakest and famished. After all, the word hangry wasn't invented for nothing. I also don't think it was a coincidence that it was after 40 days in the silence and emptiness of the desert that Jesus was able to resist, that he had so much clarity, that he could not be fooled. After all, right before he went there, he had this deep insight about who he was and how he mattered. And it led him straight to a place with nothing to do but reflect on that truth, a place to practice, a place to watch his thoughts, get intimate with his own confusions and doubts, a place to strengthen his bond with his calling, with love, with the truth in himself. Until he was so clear and committed and practiced that he could not be fooled by anyone or anything, even a voice in his own head, and those can be the worst. One of the things I love about the Christian story is that this Jesus, this God, this Holy One, is not just seen as God, but also as human, as fully, bodily, fallibly human, full of weakness and susceptibilities, full of vulnerability to temptations and doubts of all kinds, just like us. Lent has been billed as an opportunity to practice resisting temptation, a time to walk in the footsteps of Jesus, experience some deprivation, and know what it's like to go without giving in. Now, Lent and Christianity are not the only religious traditions that suggest some kind of renunciation is good for the soul. Buddhism, Islam, and Judaism all have practices along these lines. And I can see why. It's not a bad thing to practice giving something up and seeing what comes up in you when you do. It's a great way to prepare for times when loss comes your way without your permission. And it's a great way to get to know the particular storylines temptation uses in you, so you're more likely to recognize them and less likely to give in to them when it really matters. But I think for many who grew up Christian, there was so much emphasis on Lent's giving up piece that it's possible to miss the remembering who you are piece. It would be easy to get focused on the lack of this or that and miss the chance to see more clearly what that absence reveals, which is your presence, who you are, and why you're even here. I think for some who grew up Christian, the deeper meaning of the practice could become obscured over time. I remember one friend telling me that, not unlike making a New Year's resolution to stop making New Year's resolutions, for Lent, she was renouncing the practice of renunciation, giving up the practice of giving something up. Other Christian friends have told me that rather than giving something up, they are instead taking on some practice that supports living into their full humanity, adding something rather than taking something away. But that reclaiming humanity is really the point, I think, of all spiritual practice, of any spiritual path. Whether that reclaiming is by giving something up or adding something in, engaging with your faith is all about remembering, clearing away dust and grit, and living based on who you really are, with the clarity, certainty, and confidence that are your birthright. Jesus heard the call of the Spirit, and from that moment forward, lived his life as if he mattered, and every single other person mattered too. What would it take for you to remember? Really remember. What would it take for you to reclaim yourself, your life, your natural joy, your highest aspirations? If you really knew who you are, what would your life look like then? I invite you, if you like, to join in singing our closing hymn, We Are.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. Oh, for each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. Oh, for each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers of life, and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth, keepers of faith, makers of peace, and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers of life, and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are one.
May we remember who we are and let that inform what we see, what we do, and everything we do. Living our lives, knowing that we matter and every single other person matters too. Amen. Go in peace. Let us join for our very last closing song, Carry the Flame.